Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Let's just wait for YouTube to kick in. Yeah, I caught my cough too. Oh well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Frivolity. Lots of action going on in the market. As I sort of said, site update wise, Rocket Chat went and did a big old brain fart on us over the weekend, so Sjord's scrambling a bit with that, and there's also some funny changes to code on the back end, so poor old Sjord. Back in the trenches, but as this builds out and once we get to the point where all this is usable data, then we'll know we're ready to rock and roll. For whatever it's worth, I talked yesterday about a bunch of altcoins all putting in some interesting bottoms, and to that effect, I wanted to sort of be a man of my word. So on my journal here, and I think I make this public. If you want to follow it, feel free. I have logged and journaled this storage trade, and as somebody pointed out just a few minutes ago in the lounge, and we'll talk lots about it through the show. Altcoins relative to Bitcoin are coming off hard here this morning as Bitcoin's enjoying a nice rally. So actually I got my fill. I put the order in at this double bottom level. I didn't want to chase it. I suppose, hindsight 2020, always 2020. I could have entertained the idea of working the bid at the reload zone here, and if you chose to do so, that's perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine. But I just simply bought this weekly W, and I'm going to risk to new lows. And I thought it was kind of interesting. The low that they painted here was 1, 2, 3, 4. It seemed a little suspicious to me, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So I have taken this trade on. If I'm right, I get paid 0.03 BTC. If I'm wrong, I lose 0.01 BTC. 3-to-1 risk reward. I can live with those numbers. So we'll see how it goes. So just an update on that, and I'm not exactly sure how the system is tracking. I don't see that trade reported. We'll see whether at the end of the day whether that actually gets reported here on the trades or not. But I'm not quite sure if this is updating yet. But just wanted to give you an FYI, just a heads up, that I actually did go and be a man of my word. I went and bought that storage, and there is the trade in real time. I'll sort of keep you updated, and like I said, if we break this 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm just gonna walk away. So putting my money to work, just following the plan. Should be a pretty simple idea. And the interesting thing is this is just the highs from back in June. If we actually zoom out to, Nutso Insano 2017, 2018 market, you can see how far this thing's got to go. So I'll take a chance. I'll see what happens. As for broader market, and I just did a volume test at the beginning, but I don't think I was recording so everybody heard Kevin. But Kevin's here helping me with the daily brief here this morning, and want to just give him the opportunity to say hello. How you doing this morning, Kevin?
Doing good, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to add to your comment about storage, today's kind of been a good day for me to start getting a couple buy orders filled actually on coins like SYS and Decentraland. I'm kind of looking to get filled on, and so it's cool. Like Bitcoin went up today, and then
that's brought all the prices back down, eh?
With that, yeah, like I'm looking to get filled off the necklines of these little W's that have come in.
Okay, cool. So I mean, at least we've got ideas that we're kicking around. I mean, for the longest time, especially through the end of the summer, there was just nothing for us to do. So I mean, it's encouraging that we have bottoms. We don't know whether these bottoms are going to hold or not. I mean, it's just a trader's life, but at least we got something to work with now. So we'll see how it goes. So good morning, Kevin. And I got to say, Kevin, of course. And I was even joking with him before I got the video going. This seems to happen. I bring on co-hosts and they become ridiculously good at this, and then they decide to head off into the sunset. So Kevin was telling me this morning, and we'll talk about it later on, that we had bullish bot setups come in that were, fairly high octane. And he said he was able to hop on this bot and trade it. So way to go, Kevin. Great to hear. So I suppose when we get to crypto, we'll talk about that more. But broader market message, what I'm sort of hearing this morning, of course, is we had sort of talked about econs coming up over the past week or so, and how we had almost a bit of a vacuum here in econs, but we did have some Fed speakers, and especially we said that Powell was going to be speaking twice, and my hunch here is that the entire market was sort of waiting for that speech and what it was going to portend with regard to things like the economic direction and, more importantly, direction of short-term interest rates. And that really hit the market hard yesterday, no doubt about it. There was one gentleman who said he was long calls in the lounge, and I was a little bit worried for him. But the market will do what the market does, try and build a plan and, stick with the plan. I had sort of been thinking yesterday, okay, well, we came down to this trend line. We flirted with it, and it felt like we were going to rally back up and fill in the gap. And I was even sort of postulating with him, if you're really lucky, you get a move like this, AB equals CD, to take us up top here. Then then Powell came out and spoke, and the whole market just tanked on his speech, basically right into the close. Also, too, the sort of sentiment around the whole China trade delegation in Washington right now, lots of humming and hawing about that, and political leaders and their tax disclosures and stuff like that. But I was actually a little surprised just waking up this morning, and you see the stock market just jumped right back up to basically where it was yesterday. Was there maybe some position squaring going on through this? I don't know. So very odd price action. But nonetheless, we're back on the uptick again. I hope the gentleman who had those calls didn't freak out on this event. But, try and follow your plan. And it just goes to show, I kind of think the stock market's in kind of a very wishy-washy, here's short trade location, here's buy location. So we're sort of chopping around in no man's land. This is going to be tough sledding. And what I noticed is it's sort of like risk on, risk off, risk on, risk off. And sort of that's what this kind of conversation's about. Is I'm noticing, and we've been sort of conjecturing about this, I wanted for... I think I said for like the past month or so, I've been showing you guys this chart, and I've been drawing reload zones and just saying I got to be patient. I got to wait for my setups. I want to get short these risk off proxies on any kind of serious counter trend rallies. And ironically enough, the only one that actually set up the trade, which I actually thought was the one market that wouldn't set up the trade, so go figure, was the bonds. And so on this little M top here yesterday, and really the confirmation of this 3-bar fractal, you can see the tail of yesterday went through that low. I initiated my purchase plan. So interestingly enough, this plan actually contradicts to a certain degree this plan, in that I actually think what may happen here is the stock market actually can work its way back up into reload zones, into shorting locations, and through this rally window, this bond trade I think could work rather nicely. And you can see the market gap lower this morning, and is just in down move seriously as sort of this risk on. And I'm starting to, risk on, I'm starting to see W's actually starting to come in. And interestingly enough, look who's leading the charge of risk on. And we kind of mused about that. Is Bitcoin kind of a leading indicator for risk on here? To a certain degree, I'm kind of thinking yes. So interesting enough, and also notice the oil, sneaky. Here comes a W on the oil. We've been sort of thinking about that recently as well. So, in this kind of environment where it feels like, we've actually got M's now on the yen. Cute little fast M on the bonds. I don't know how long lasting this is. We'll see. The only one that's not sort of cooperating with this whole model just as of yet is the golds. I'm not quite sure why. There might be like industry specific news. You can see the M is already in place in gold. We're having a bit of an up day here and actually gapped higher. So like I said, fundamentally there must be something going on with like futures contracts or something along those lines. And Brian and his yen gold, look how yen is just pressing hard to the downside here. And of course the bonds are basically on the lows of the day. So I actually am. I said I was going to do this. So I actually felt like I was going to be a little remiss if I didn't. I saw the price action come in, and then what I thought was really interesting about this, and we had our TRI SOF meeting last night, considering the sort of cyclical nature of what I'm seeing, just to finish that thought, I'm not really thinking about any new sort of stock market purchases until we get to this window, which is still a good week or two away. So we didn't really have any new purchases come out of meeting last night, but there is one that we did, ironically enough, that I do need to talk to you guys about, but we'll get to that in a bit. So just to sort of finish off, this market overview kind of thought, I've got the risk-off assets all coming sort of back down. Risk-on assets are catching a bit of a bid with things like W's on oil and Bitcoin. So and the sort of, when I was going through the rags this morning, the sort of sentiment that I was hearing was that the Chinese have said that they are willing to back off on one or two of their demands. Which is sort of like, we really want to do some sort of trade deal. Now, keep in mind, this thing goes back and forth, but this sort of reason du jour where I'm hearing that risk on and stocks in general are feeling a little bit happier, and these risk off assets are feeling a bit weaker is this idea that, number one, the Fed yesterday, I think, came out and said, look at we'll get the bond repo program going back up and running. So basically turning on the quantitative easing spigots again. Some people call it the Powell put. Often they sort of name whoever the Fed governor is. If they come out and say we're turning the liquidity back on, have fun. That it's whoever's name is their put. So as he backstops stock prices here over the short term, could be. Is this a lot of sort of back and forth and position squaring as the sort of trade negotiations are going on? That's also a definite possibility. I haven't really seen too much talk in the major media or anything about Hong Kong, so I wonder if that's sort of simmering down a little bit. But we'll see. Only time will tell there. All right, so hopefully broader market, that gives you an idea of what I look at. I suppose we should probably talk about this now. In a weird sort of way, this is sort of the vulgarities of trading. And this stock, I had actually bought the W in my personal account. And what was really interesting, because we had our TRI SOF meeting last night, is we had actually worked a bid because it did meet the TRI SOF criteria for Zach and my plan. to buy like the I think it's the $3 calls going out into the new year. I don't know if any Casey, you were at that meeting last night. Which call was it that we bought? I can't remember. I think it's the $3 call. Anyway, you can see, we'll talk more about Bitcoin rally and stuff in a bit, but clearly this guy's caught a bit of a bid here. And, this is the vulgarity of trading conversation. I do find it interesting that the market came down, it rallied back up, then it dojied yesterday. So I suppose those sharp on their game could have said, well, isn't that a W right there? And I'll just hop right back in where I got out. If you're a really slick trader, I suppose that's the case. I'm just going to say that for me, I want to wait for, especially with this, because it was the downtrend line here that really stopped this bull in its tracks. So now we've broken through that downtrend line. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the damn stock just takes off like a rocket here. It could. I mean, anything can happen in this world. But any kind of W that I see develop over here is going to be sort of my next signal. So just an FYI on that one. And you can see he's having a bit of an update today. Other than that, coming out of the meeting last night, we took a look at a bunch of shipping stocks. I've got this one on because I bought it over here, sold half on a double, or maybe over here, sold half on a double. So I still have my free position on the books. I don't really mind. I've talked a little bit recently about hunting TRISOFs off this, but I don't think these guys have options. But, this is the one that I have that's free on the books. If it breaks through 268, I think might even just go buy back that free position and see how we do there. So I'm keeping an eye on that, but there was a bunch of them. And, if you do trade the stock market, there are some really interesting little ideas out there. I mean, you get gaps like to be filled. You can see what that would do to price here, and cute little head and shoulders coming in off of these. I don't know whether I would chase price up top here like this. Kind of like that little storage I bought. Maybe work a bit off the breakout level and see if we get a pullback. But I'm seeing a bunch of what was the other one? Oh, I suppose there's always dry ships. I wonder what he's doing these days. Well, it looks like they must have restructured it, but you can see it's pressing higher here, higher highs and higher lows, yada yada yada. Maybe what I'll do is let's go. Which one was it? So names that we sort of came out of last night, we were interested in. For those people that are interested in retail stocks, JCPenney looks kind of interesting here. This NTZ, this is a luxury retailer. Interesting setup there on a move back to the 50% rule. There's that bond trade that I talked about. Kirkland's, I think this was one of Casey's ideas. He's come back down into a buying window, so I think we just sort of said any kind of half decent bottom there, might take a look at him. Guys were kicking around the idea of buying put options. I think this was one of Kevin's. On this thing, Altice USA, I mean, it has absolutely a staggering debt load. So if my bond put trade works and interest rates start going up in it dramatically, this guy could be under pressure. So there's a name to consider if you're interested in puts. Here's another pharma name that's starting to come back down into reload zones against original double bottoms. So keep that guy on your radar screen if you're interested in stocks. That's NAVB. I wanted to show you like 3D systems. He looked like he was getting into an interesting spot here. CLDX, we are long this one. Really interesting chart pattern that's trying to develop here. So if you are interested in the pharma names, watch the double bottom here on CLDX. Ascena, drive me crazy, is now starting to go, but it is what it is. These guys were all underwater. What the heck did I do with the new ideas? Which one was this? Well, let's try this one, see if that works. Alright, well, you know, speaking of shipping stocks, really interested in well, a couple names here. First off, coming out of the meeting last night, we sort of agreed that this is one of Kevin's shipping stocks. If this thing could fractal out here, I think I might be interested in going and buying it. You can see I have an alert set, so if this thing fires, I might take a shot at this guy here. This was one shipping stock, and it was funny. I found this stock yesterday as I was going through my screens, and I logged onto my brokerage account. I was like, all right, place the buy order there at 862. It's a nice weekly W, yada yada yada. And I find out that I tried to place the order about 45 minutes after the market closed. So I was like, ah, crap, and I just went and killed the order. But this is another shipping stock, and I mean, hopefully everybody can see the beautiful inverted head and shoulders. AB equals CD, almost cup and handle too. Look at the volume pouring in on this thing. So shipping stocks are all the rage right now. So, you know, I think we've missed this one. It's gone. But I definitely think if you're interested in a trade, keep an eye on this Sino Kevin's. 3D Systems was a stock that I wanted to buy here recently. You know, we missed the original double bottom breakout. And through the meeting on yesterday, I'd sort of said, you know, we got about 10 days till that buying window. So hopefully, if we're lucky, we can just get it to come down into here. So probably be watching this one really closely over the next couple of weeks as well. All right, so that's, I guess, everything coming out of last night's meeting. Heading over to crypto, I guess, now. Let's see. Anything else I want to talk about here? Nope. Good old Goldman Sachs. And actually, it's kind of funny because I pulled up a Bitcoin chart here this morning that I hadn't looked at in a while because it was off of, I think it might have been, oh, fudge, maybe I got rid of it. But maybe it was off of Coinbase here. I think I had noted that the level at which Goldman Sachs they thought Bitcoin was a buy. And I thought it was funny just leaving that on the charts. I don't seem to have it here, so I'm not quite sure what I did with it. Oh well. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't want to mess these charts up, so let's put everything back. Okay. Okay. What the heck did I do with that? Maybe it's over here? No. Oh, that was for Kevin. No. Darn. Oh, well. It's gone. Okay, so we talked about broader market. We talked about the stock market. Hopefully, if you're lucky, Mr. Calls, this scenario plays out for you. I'm still thinking, you know, of course, the end of October is when that pivot comes in, so I'm not really in a hurry to do anything with those puts. And if they come back down in price, I'm not going to really be too worried. Okay, over to Bitcoin. You know, I think you could make the argument, you know, of course, market's never one directional, right? I think we can make the argument that maybe things are getting a little bit too far, too fast for Mr. Dominant. So, would it be a surprise to us if we saw that, you know, we had to have a check at least of the underside of this breakdown on the dominance conversation here before, you know, sort of our next move lower? Sure, I think that makes perfect sense. So, I suppose if we just draw a trend line resistance, something like that, just really simple, we could easily see a counter trend rally back up into this area, no problem. So to a certain degree, I think that's sort of what the dominating the conversation here today is. We've started this sort of move back up check here. How far does this rally go? So that's probably sort of the starting of crypto conversations. I was interested to see, of course, nice to see spreads, and I think I mentioned this the other day, but spreads, especially off of Bitcoin, trying really hard here on OKCoin to base, right? Hopefully everybody can see the W's that are trying to come in here. Very sloppy, but nonetheless, you can see the base is trying to form here. And if anything, the fact that it moved to new lows there means to me maybe we got to come back down one more time and test this. We'll see how that goes. Same sort of thing here on Litecoin. We panicked to new lows here, and then it quickly ratcheted back up and busted that top. Now, interesting, it looks like we're topping out again. The interesting one that actually is looking the most positive here is the Ethereum, because it made this low here, and then this low here was higher. So that meant that a recapture of the zero line meant that the spreads are feeling a little bit more positive. And interestingly enough, I think Ethereum looks pretty positive here. See Bitcoin there trying to continue to push higher here. So I think sentiment-wise, things are feeling uppy again. So that's encouraging. I think we ought to be careful about how bullish we are going to get here, though. If we pop on over to our weekly charts, and this was the conversation I sort of had with the free audience on YouTube yesterday. I don't know whether I talked too much to you guys about this. But, good old 50% level and that oscillation idea, gee whiz, is that ever powerful? Frankly speaking, I'm surprised that we didn't come down and hit this AB equals CD. Maybe just too many people were watching for that. I don't know. And then, of course, Mountain Man is still floating around down here at about 7,200. But market found some footing there through the weekend. Is trying now to come back and capture 30 SMA. If we can recapture it, then it means moving average sandwiches. And we've sort of talked about this a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we have to brush underneath the original market structure failure level, which is sort of like along there. Excuse me. If I can draw a straight line. Somewhere along there. And notice there's the... Excuse me, holy hiccups. There is the 13 EMA sort of sneaking along here. So, if we can accept above here, and of course the day's still young, you don't know, by the end of the day we might melt back down here. But if we can accept back above here, I think our next logical sort of stopping point is, these candle body lows, these tail lows, and the 13 EMA right there. And that's sitting right now at, looks like it says, of course it's right on top of that. What does that say? I can't figure out which color it is. 9301? Yeah, I guess so. 9301, right in that area. So, that's sort of the state of affairs off the higher time frames. Interesting to see, Bitcoin's internals off the weeklies, nothing really to write home about. It's still pretty heavy. No W's anywhere in sight there. But interesting to see, we noticed that Ethereum was kind of outperforming there on the spreads. We noticed Ethereum actually put in a little bit of a bull divergence here in momentum. Off the weekly basis too, which is pretty important. Powerful stuff. It's probably one reason why that riot and stuff are moving back up. If we and it's kind of hard to see here, but if we go low and then lower low, You notice that we did not make a lower low there on MACD. So we're trying to tick back up here. I still think for all intents and purposes, top of the range, bottom end of the range, swimming around here. You know, this Litecoin Ethereum setup failed. Inside bar the following week. That inside bar has confirmed. So clearly there is interest in the market in and around these levels. You know, on this dump, there was very little sort of follow through following it. And same thing on Litecoin. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, yes, inside bar. So, I mean, if you want to hunt that, awesome. Unfortunately for me, I'm just sort of frozen out here as it stands right now. You know, we do have this sort of A, B, C, D, which takes us right back into reload zones. And against this original little trend line off of these lows. Yeah, I don't know whether that's relevant. Maybe off of just like those lows there. Yeah, I don't think that's relevant. Maybe we'll just put it back there. I think there's something along here, but I can't really see it right now. So A, B, C, D, you know, 1.618, good old Mountain Man. You know, this was a V top, just an inside bar, so I guess that makes sense. But kind of like the riot, I think I gotta let this thing settle down a little bit here before I get too excited. I suppose you could argue, you know, lower time frames if you're really slick, hourly charts, that kind of stuff. You know, there might have been a bullish setup here, but I didn't really have anything just as of yet. And interestingly enough, on the Litecoin, we started watching this yesterday, and I had sort of said this yesterday. I mean, the inside bar did fire. This one actually was a pretty clean one. You can see that same sort of little bull div that's trying to come in here off Litecoin. Don't really have any solid bottoms on any of the price or volume oscillators, and it's not like it's on really heavy volume. So, you know, yes, inside bar did fire. We haven't gotten to this A, B, C, D objective yet. Is it another one of these type of scenarios? I don't know. I think we could easily see a counter trend rally, kind of like Ethereum, right back up, you know, reload short zone for him. If we drill down to a daily, it's probably the same thing there. There to there. There to there. So looks like short-term resistance is up in this area. There is that double bottom we talked about, and yesterday, you know, it broke up from the double bottom, and then yesterday it just sort of sat there on almost no volume at all. Did the bears fall asleep? Could be. We're getting sort of further acceptance above here. I suppose, you know, like here's a double bottom. You know, you could have, you know, done that one. I don't know whether you have to risk all the way to new lows. If you do, this trade probably doesn't make sense. 1.51. It's nothing to write home about. And that's even looking for Mountain Man, not a 50% tag. So I don't know. I think just like the riot, same sort of thing. You know, bottom came in, then they quickly put in another bottom, and they're working it back up. I just, unfortunately, I don't really have a trade. I suppose you could have Davoed this. There's a bit of a W that came in there, a bit of a W that came in there. So that's just risking against this W, which would be buying there and then risking to there. And I think Davo just shoots for 2-to-1. Interesting. So Mountain Man tag there is 2-to-1. So the Davo buying this W and this W and this W. I think that's probably the trade that's working right now. Tough creature though, no doubt about it. And if anything, you know what I find is, you know, an interesting commentary for you guys is when we get close to the bottom, you get a lot of these sort of, you know, head fakes and, first setup fails, and you get lots of media reports. Oh, is market timing not work? And then you look back 6 months from now and you see, oh yeah, it turns out a bottom did come in there, and yada yada yada. So, could this be the bottom? I suppose it could be. I don't see enough internal evidence here off the weekly charts to tell me, the bottom is in. So, I'm just going to have to sort of, kind of like the riot, I'm going to have to wait for a new W to come in here and just be patient. I can completely understand people if they wanted to take the second sort of shot off this low, looking for 2-to-1s off that inside bar. I think it's there, but it's not a trade that I've done. Speaking about Bitcoin in particular, first and foremost, we were practicing this little day trading model. Remember yesterday the 4 hours turned up, so officially we, this model just basically goes under the cupboard when the 4 hours and the dailies are conflicting. So for now, nothing doing here. Algos never really did have a signal here. So nothing like algo trade to report. I did talk about how there was this bearish bot setup from this high down to this low, and then multiple lower highs above the 25 level. And I did suggest that I thought that this was still valid, even though we did pop up yesterday. But clearly that bot setup has now been stopped out. So the bot is officially off the table. In fact, if you wanted to continue watching these levels, you got to take your tool and now draw off of this new high. And do we see 3 lower highs, etc., etc. So this trade officially got stopped. See you later. So that's sort of the state of things right now. What I thought was interesting when I drew this up this morning is the original trend line going all the way back off the top, and I even posted this in the lounge. This original trend line right here, this market structure top, that's actually what the market, and remember the whole battle through here, and then the loss of it, and then the battle through here, and then the subsequent loss of it. Well, here we are again. We're basically right back at this old trend line level. So also too, and I think it's important that we, sort of keep that in mind. Guys like, the Coinbase chart that I drew up here originally, it's bullish bot setup. Remember we talked about yesterday, we said that there was a bullish harmonic that painted, it was a PRZ down in this area, and I was exceedingly proud of the site members for taking that trade. Then we sort of mused that maybe there was a 5-minute that came in off of this, and if anything, this is probably a really good sort of analogy of why the harmonic guys want to try and take profit, at least partial profits at 38.2s. So, if you were hunting this short, I think it was 1.618, 618, so somewhere up in this area here. I'm just trying to get the number. Something like that. If you had shorted through here and survived that, notice that this move here, we do 38.2. Notice the market came right down into that level. So you would have gotten partially filled. Ding, 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 ding. Stop to scratch on remaining. And then you would have been blown out on the remaining on this pump right here this morning. So if anything, like the level 3ers just did harmonics. Why do harmonic people force themselves to try and take partial profits at 38.2? I think that's a pretty darn good analogy of why. Okay, type 1 reaction. Fair enough. So the point that I would just make is that I think that any sort of potential bearish setups that were working off of lower time frames, I get the impression that they basically were politely told to get out, basically, and especially on this sort of double bottom right here. As I had said earlier, and I was so pleased to hear, but one low, two lows, three lows. I mean, if you were sharp on the tack, we do actually have a double bottom working here. I mean, technically that was a nice bullish bot breakout. And you can see on Coinbase here, it just went zipping up. Bang, 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 bing, you're done. So, this is a great analogy of what sort of a day trader's life looks like operating off of the hourly chart. So I was very impressed with the people that said that they took the bot. And, Kevin even said he saw this and he jumped in very quickly on it. So congrats, Kevin. If I'm not mistaken, he said that he was over on Kraken. And if anything, this is the vulgarities of trading all these crazy cryptocurrencies on different exchanges. You can see he's still waiting for his fill level up here. So it's interesting how Kraken is not cooperating as much as something like Coinbase. I would also say, are you waiting for that level? I would even say something like that, A to B. C to D also takes us up into that level. Whoa, that's awfully close to that high there, right? So just be patient. I think you'll get your fill here. And also, too, look at the internals. I mean, and actually Kevin had pointed this out, too. Really good application of the concept of divergence, where you can see price was actually making lower lows. And MACD was making higher lows, so something's not right here with the bear. Willie didn't really get stupid, but sure was a pretty wide double bottom that came in there. And then you start seeing the volume start to turn here. I mean, at this point, if you weren't long, if you weren't hunting for that long, and maybe even if you were short off lower time frames, you got to start going, maybe I better get ready to hop off here. Things are looking pretty uppy. So the only other thing that I'd mention with this, and I think Kevin also said this too earlier, which I thought was so cool, is, if you were hunting for continuation here, and you saw divergences starting to form, you might have thrown on like a trend line off of these peaks. Just said, do I get 3 tags of trend line? So 1, 2, 3, 4, break of it. Rule is got to get in there long on market structure on the other side of the trend line. So something like that. And also, I think you can make the argument. I think you can actually make the argument that you got almost like a double whammy buy signal here. So there and there. And if we dude up the bot levels here. So there's there to there to there to there. So let's see where 25 comes in. Bot trade. Yeah, there we go. So even both of these W's got you to front run the bot a little bit here. So I was very, very pleased when Kevin told me that he hopped in on this one. Excellent work, guys. Excellent work. So I think something along the lines, the trade looks something along the lines like that. I don't know that I've drawn that exactly right. And really good analogy, you got to wait for that W on the other side of the trend line. Hell, you might have even snuck in over here. But just wait for this trend line to be broken and give me some sort of structure on the other side of it. Really, I think that was actually your buy signal right there. So, if you're playing Kraken, I think some interesting levels there. 112.10. Alright, what time is it? Oh, we got another 12 minutes. Oh, what a laugh. 1240. Almost there. 1210. Okay, so you know, had you taken this move stop to scratch, move stop to trailing, you know, I don't have a problem if you want to, you know, and we sort of talked about this with you know, level 3 stop management. You could start maybe even off like a 15-minute chart. Just start hunting market structure. So clearly you can see off the 15-minute we have a level here. So, you know, if we start to show signs of failure and we break down through there, you know, that's probably a good application of sort of that move stop to trailing kind of concept. Because, you know, look left. If this was just a big FU and we do crap out, we might have to zip all the way right back down into these levels. And, you know, as new market structure comes in, you just keep moving your stop up as we go. You could also do things like imply moving averages to try and help you stay in. So you can see 13 EMA is racing up here very fast. You know, that's another good one. If you get a close below 13 EMA, hop off. But that's sort of the general principle of sort of, you know, move stops on this move stop to trailing level. And as I'd said, if you had taken it on other exchanges, these AB equals CDs were hit. So I just have a funny feeling it's something to do with this Kraken. You know, over here, like on Coinbase, Colleen, she got her fill and she's laughing. So kind of an oddity of crypto, I suppose. Anyway. Okay, so that gives you an idea what I'm seeing out of the corn. As I said, off the sort of higher time frame charts, we got a lot of cleaning up to do. What I'm worried about here is, and actually Joshua was posting this in the lounge earlier this morning. This is like billiard ball theory. Let's see if I can find that image. Here it is. What happens if I just, okay, well, we'll just go like that. So this is theoretically what they say what random actually looks like. And what I guess I want you to sort of take away from this is notice like this is sort of inside this part right here. So it just keeps compressing over and over and over, really to infinity, because then you could zoom in this here and do another one, etc., etc., etc. But it's weird how there's like a left shoulder, neckline, head, neckline, right shoulder, and in this scenario, the shoulders are actually higher than the head. Sometimes they come in lopsided, but just generally think of that image, right? And then we go, and this happens to be the CME market chart, and hopefully you see that same sort of thing, where we have a shoulder, neckline, head, which is sort of the middle. Right, again, hopefully you can see the similarities. So, you know, this left side's over here, middle, right, is right here, neckline there and there is there and there, and then the right shoulder is there. And in this case, you can see, I mean, it wasn't symmetrical, that's for sure. But you can sort of see the double top fail, double top fail. And it, you know, if you almost draw like a line, a vertical line, like straight off of this apex point, it almost looks like a mirror image on both sides. I don't know whether you can see that or not. I hope you can. But anyway. So, you know, we've conjectured what does this gap fill look like. And, you know, off of the bigger time frame charts, I think this is on here. Well, that's basically this funny tail that I make reference to. This tail just does not look right. Something's not right about this tail here. So that's, you know, what is that? 7,200 or so down to like 6,200 there on stamp. And on that futures contract, that's there, 7,160 or so to fill that gap down to 6,300. So what I'm worried about here is you notice the market symmetry. Look at this double bottom. the counter trend rally, and then the slam down on the other side of it. If we just flip that over, that's basically what this is, right? It's the exact mirror image of this price action. And notice if we take it off of this, this was a big face rip rally, so a big face dump. And look how price action is following along that path. So what I'm worried about here is, everything we sort of talked about earlier, off that weekly chart. Where is it? Right in here, 13 EMA, underside of all these candle bodies and these candle lows, right? And also too, what I wonder is, do we get an equal oscillation around the 50% level? So I did that off of which one was it? Darn. I thought I had it handy. Anyway, I did it off of one of these charts. Oh yeah, here it is here. So, if you think of the 50% level as a magnet, you can sort of see how it's drawn back, it pulled away, drawn back. Do we accept above the 50% level? And you can see the pullback even right now. Notice how we jumped above it, came right back, and now the 50% level is probably going to act as almost a fulcrum on the other side. So, if we do, if this is sort of symmetrical, then we should replicate this range on the other side. And that takes us up to like 92, 9300, somewhere up in that area, eh? 93, 91 here. So that sort of aligns with what I was sort of saying off of, where was that chart I was just on? Is it over here? Yeah. This symmetrical study, right, the little W big counter trend rally right here, that would be that rally against all these lows, 13 EMA on the weekly chart, the replication of this range on the other side of that 50% level. Then what I'm worried about, and this is what scares me, is that we get the dump on the other side of the event. Also, too, this sort of corresponds with sort of risk on, risk off. Stock market's feeling a little happier. They want to rally the stock market, and crude and stuff back up, try and give them the opportunity to actually, like the stock market, actually sell against the top end of the range. And then we dump into the end of October. So, this is sort of why when I look at things like Litecoin and Ethereum, I'm like, yeah, counter trend rallies. Yeah, I can see the dead cat bounce. Yeah, I can see the inside bars. But I'm not totally convinced that we're out of the woods just yet. And this kind of symmetrical study has me concerned here. I don't know. Does that make any sense to anybody? Was that worth me taking that time to go through all that? I don't know. Sure hope so. Okay, so as I had sort of said earlier, I did actually pull the trigger on an altcoin. I haven't bought an altcoin in a while, but I did go and buy this W here. You can see I'm underwater as we speak. If you want to join me by working bids in reload zones, that's probably the smart idea. There's a nice little gap right down there. I also noticed too that versus USD, wasn't overly impressed with this chart. Yes, we are back down against key lows, but not really a solid W here. I think you can make the argument on that pullback where I got filled sort of there. You could have gotten your fill on this thing off the original double bottom. I do think that there is a lot of names out there. I think Kevin was telling me that he was working some bid on CIS. If I'm not mistaken. I always like these guys. I think they have a half decent story. So you can see the W's, same sort of thing. If I just replicated what I did on that storage, I would be trying to buy, breakout there. So I would not have been filled just yet. But I suppose, if you wanted to, you could reload zone up this stuff. And maybe have some stink bids working in this area. Looks like there's a cheeky little gap right in there. Might even be another one right in there. So down in this area here. Yeah, I mean, the W's are there. It's just really a question of, are you going to trade the W's? Is this part of your trading plan? So, have some fun out there in the market. I think I've given you a pretty good rundown of what I'm sort of seeing going on. We do have class here in about an hour, so I think I'll wind up right at the top of the hour, and then Kevin and I will go off and do the daily brief recap, and then we'll get off to level 3ers. It's all about harmonics questions today. I'm sure Own Pollution's got 27 questions for me. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the offering. All the best. PMA for the win. Look forward to talking with you all again real soon. All the best. And the only thing left to say at this point is bye for now.